A single dad just wanted to give his daughter a normal day. But when they sat at a picnic spot meant for a celebrity, they got far more than they ever expected. The morning sun hadn't even cleared the rooftops when Rahul sends alarm buzz to life, vibrating against the chipped nightstand with a shrill urgency. He groaned, slapping at it until the noise stopped and sat up in the dim. Grey light, another day, another scramble. The smell of old engine oil clung to his clothes, even after last night's quick shower, and the ache in his back from a week spent under hoods and engines reminded him that rest was more of a suggestion than a reality. He shuffled into the kitchen where yesterday's dishes still sat in the drying rack, and the coffee pot blinked stubbornly, demanding to be filled. A box of cereal sat half open on the counter. Its contents dangerously low, he poured the last of it into a chipped bowl and added milk. With a cautious sniff still good, barely across the hall, his daughter Sona's bedroom door creaked open, and a mop of tangled hair peeked out. Dad, her sleepy voice called. "Morning, sweet pea," he said, softening. Sona padded in, dragging her backpack by one strap. "Is it Saturday, almost one more day of school?" He slid the bowl across the table. "Eat quick, we're already running behind." As she sat and crunched through her cereal, Rahul worked around her, making a peanut butter sandwich, stuffing a juice box and an apple into her lunch bag, then checking the time and muttering a curse under his breath. He still had to get her to school, get back to the shop and meet a supplier, who was already 2 weeks late on delivering brake pads. "Did you sign my permission slip?" Sona asked through a mouthful of cereal. Rahul froze mid-step. "What slip?" She pointed to her folder, which he'd completely forgotten about. "Picnic day, Mrs. Reynolds says we have to bring it or we can't go." With a sigh, he grabbed a pen, scribbled his name and stuffed the paper back in. "They're done, you're official." 10 minutes later, they were out the door. The old sedan coughed and whined before starting, but it held. As they drove down the cracked street toward the elementary school, Rahul glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. He was tired, overwhelmed, barely keeping it all together. But as Sona smiled at him, jelly on her cheek, he knew he wouldn't trade it for anything. The evening light filtered through the blinds in soft golden stripes, casting long shadows across the small living room. Rahul sat on the worn couch, sorting through a stack of unopened bills with the same dull ache settling in his chest. As always, Sona was on the carpet in front of the coffee table, carefully coloring a picture of a tree with birds in the branches, her tongue poking out in quiet concentration. "Dad," she said suddenly, not looking up from her drawing. "Yes, sweet pea," he replied. She paused, then glanced back at him with wide, hopeful eyes. "Can we have a picnic?" Rahul blinked. "A picnic like a real one," she said, sitting up straighter, "with a blanket and sandwiches and maybe juice boxes in the park. Like the families in the movies. Not the backyard, a real one." He set the envelopes down slowly. "Where'd you get that idea?" "Ella had one last weekend. Her mom packed strawberries and everything." Sona said dreamily. She said, "It was the best day ever." Rahul managed to smile even as his chest tightened. It sounded so simple, so normal, but everything these days had a price tag. Time, gas, groceries. He wanted to say yes without thinking, but his brain was already calculating how much a loaf of bread and a pack of juice boxes would eat into next week's grocery budget. "I don't know," he said gently, trying not to let the weariness in his voice show. "I've got a lot going on with work." Sona didn't pout or complain. She just nodded, looked down at her drawing and started coloring again. But her smile had faded. Rahul sat there for a long moment, watching her shoulders slope, watching the way her crayon slowed. He rubbed his hands over his face and sighed. "Hey, sweet pea." She looked up again. He smiled softly. "How about Saturday? We'll pack some sandwiches, find a sunny spot in the park, and have our own best day ever." Sona's face lit up like a sunrise. She jumped up and threw her arms around his neck. "Really?" "Really," he whispered into her hair, holding her tight. "Just don't forget the strawberries." Friday started like most days do, early and already behind. The hum of the space heater barely kept the morning chill at bay. In Rahul's small kitchen, as he stood over a battered notebook, pen in hand trying to stretch dollars like they were made of elastic. Rent was due in 5 days, the electric bill was late, and Sona had grown out of her sneakers again, but tomorrow was picnic day, and he was going to make it happen no matter what. He jotted down a grocery list on a torn receipt. Bread, peanut butter, jelly, juice boxes, apples, maybe chips if they're on sale. His pen hovered over the page, He wanted to add something sweet, maybe cookies or those frosted animal crackers Sona loved, but he crossed it out and kept moving. At the shop, business was slow. Too slow, 2 cars sat half-finished in the bay. Waiting on parts that hadn't come in yet, a 3rd customer had called to cancel a scheduled oil change, saying their cousin would do it cheaper. Rahul sighed and rubbed his temples. He couldn't afford to close the shop, not even for half a day, but Saturday mornings were usually quiet. He'd risk it just this once. By mid-afternoon, he slipped away to the discount grocery store down the road. Still wearing his grease-streaked coveralls, he pushed a wobbly cart past rows of dented cans and off-brand cereal, hunting for deals every item he picked up. He weighed in his mind cost versus joy. Would Sona notice if the juice boxes weren't the ones with the cartoon animals? Probably not. Would she miss the cookies? Maybe he tossed in a small pack anyway, and didn't look at the price he paid in cash, the kind of crumpled bills and coins that said this purchase had been scraped together from coat pockets and glove compartments. As he stepped outside, grocery bag in hand, the late sun glinted off the hood of his old sedan. It was still holding together barely, just like him that night. He hid the grocery bag in the cupboard so Sona wouldn't see it. By early morning, she was already asleep, curled in a blanket on the couch, a book slipping from her hand. Rahul leaned down, brushed her hair back and whispered, "We're going to have our picnic, promise." Saturday morning arrived with a pale sun and the kind of soft breeze that made everything feel a little more possible. Rahul stood in the kitchen, jangling the handful of coins in his pocket like they were lucky charms. He had a few crumpled coupons tucked in his wallet and a mental list memorized down to the last detail. It wasn't much, but it was enough for today at least. Sona bounded into the room, wearing a too small jacket and mismatched socks, her excitement radiating like a light bulb. "Are we still going to the store before the picnic?" she asked, already grabbing her little canvas tote bag. Like she was preparing for a grand adventure. "You bet," Rahul said, smiling through the tension that never quite left his chest. "But only if you're my official shopping assistant." She saluted dramatically. "Sir." "Yes, sir." The grocery store was already buzzing when they pulled into the parking lot. Rahul parked far from the entrance, a habit from years of protecting his car's temperamental engine from door dings and careless drivers. They walked in together, hand in hand, like they were stepping into something sacred. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the speakers played pop music that Sona hummed along with. Rahul guided the cart down the aisle slowly, keeping one eye on prices and another on his daughter's face. He let her pick the sandwich bread, only the soft kind, Daddy, and the color of the juice boxes, purple because purple tastes better. When they reached the cookie aisle, she looked up at him with a question already forming in her eyes. He crouched beside her, holding up a coupon like a winning lottery ticket. "If we play our cards right," he said, "we might be able to swing some of those frosted animal crackers." "You like?" Her grin nearly split her face. Best day ever at checkout. Rahul laid out the exact change coins, crumpled bills, a few folded coupons, while Sona chatted happily with the clerk about the big secret picnic they were planning. No one in line seemed to mind walking out. Groceries in hand and sunlight warming their shoulders, Rahul glanced down at Sona. She was skipping beside him, clutching her little tote like it held treasure. It wasn't about what they bought, it was about the feeling that today, even in the smallest way, he'd made something special happen. The park was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that only existed just after sunrise, before joggers showed up, before kids spilled off playgrounds, before the city remembered it was supposed to be busy. Rahul's old sedan rumbled gently into the parking lot, coughing once as it shut off, then fell silent. He exhaled, gripping the wheel for a second before turning to Sona. "You ready, picnic queen?" Sona nodded so hard her ponytail bounced. "I brought the napkins and the animal crackers." "Well then, we're officially good to go." They walked across the dewy grass, Sona leading the way, like she'd memorized a map no one else could see. She stopped suddenly at a gentle rise near the lake, sunny, shaded just enough by a willow tree, and perfectly empty. "Here," she declared, spinning in a slow circle. "This is the perfect spot." Rahul smiled and set down their bag. He shook out the red and white checkered blanket he'd found buried in the hall closet, still smelling faintly of cedar in summertime, and spread it across the grass. Sona plopped down with a contented sigh, like she just claimed a throne. He pulled out their humble feast, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, juice boxes still cool from the fridge, 2 slightly bruised apples, and the crown jewel, animal crackers in a clear sandwich bag. Sona gasped when he placed them in the center of the blanket. "Like fine china, I declare this the best picnic ever," she said, beaming up at him. Rahul leaned back, one hand bracing behind him. Eyes drifting out over the lake, ducks floated lazily in the distance, and the breeze rustled the leaves above them. For the first time in a long time, the noise in his head quieted. What he didn't see, what neither of them saw, was the small white sign staked into the ground just a few feet behind them. The word "reserved" printed in bold black letters. Beneath it, the name read Charlotte Hale. Rahul reached for a sandwich and passed one to Sona. "Cheers," he said, tapping hers gently with his. She giggled, the best days ever. Neither of them noticed the black SUV that had just turned into the lot at the far end of the park. The first bite of Sona's sandwich hadn't even made it to her mouth. When Rahul noticed the three men, they emerged from the far side of the park path, walking in a tight formation, black dress shoes crunching the gravel, pressed slacks swaying in rhythm, each of them wearing an earpiece and the kind of expression that didn't leave room for small talk. Rahul's stomach sank before he could place why they didn't belong here, not with their tailored suits and mirrored sunglasses. Not in a sleepy public park on a Saturday morning. He instinctively shifted, subtly placing himself between them and Sona, though she remained blissfully unaware, still holding her sandwich like it was treasure. "Sir?" the tallest one said, as they stopped just at the edge of the blanket. His voice was clipped, polished. Not rude, but not friendly either. "I'm going to have..."